Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome to 7th Street.
Oh, how in the hell can anybody have so many opinions without ever having done anything?
Been a while since we've done a reference this film. It's a busy time for 7th Street Productions. Maybe I'll get into all of that at the end of this video, but right now I want to highlight an extremely underrated film by my favorite director, George Romero. It's taken me so long to finally do a Romero film because A, I've been mourning the death of my hero, and B, I wanted to make sure that I did this right.
You're an egomaniac.
And you're paranoid, so we're even, so let's stop calling each other names, okay?
When I was a 7-year-old kid, the thing that I looked forward to most were Friday nights. That one day out of the week that my dad would take me over to the local Hollywood Video and let me rent whatever 2 movies I wanted. Up until that point, I was routinely renting old monster movies. You know, typical stuff like Jack the Giant Killer, 20 Million Miles to Earth, and all the old Showa Godzilla films were the type of movies that I was really into. But right before my 8th birthday, my tastes took a drastic change.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
My older cousin had been playing a lot of Resident Evil, and I was really turned on to this whole zombie thing. I had never really seen a zombie movie before. I had become obsessed with renting one, and after a few weeks of begging my dad, he finally agreed to let me rent George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead.
Good Lord.
From that moment in the early millennium, George Romero not only became my favorite director, but the most influential artist in my life. Fun fact, the first audition I ever went on, I actually read Ben's soliloquy from Night of the Living Dead. I got the part, of course.
Over the years, I have come to admire each and every one of George Romero's films. There are obvious mega classics like Dawn of the Dead, and beautifully made cult classics like Martin,
which is my favorite movie of all time. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
But the one that gets overlooked by, well, damn near everybody, is the movie that Penn from Penn and Teller once proclaimed the most important feminist movie ever made.
The movie was originally shot under the title Jack's Wife, and it was re-released as Hungry Wives. It wasn't until the success of Dawn of the Dead that it was retitled Season of the Witch.
To understand this film, you must first try to understand the social climate of the time that it was made in. It was the early 70s. We had a criminal in the Oval Office, an unwinnable war raging overseas, and the feminist movement was in full swing.
Boy, do the times change, don't they?
While working in public television, George Romero became increasingly interested in the feminist movement that was happening in Pennsylvania. He was inspired to write and direct a film that follows a bored and unhappy housewife living in suburban Pittsburgh who becomes involved with witchcraft as a means for expanding her dimming horizons.
Leave the darkness and approach the sentinel of the north to receive the bonds and the blessings.
This movie has one of my favorite opening sequences that I've ever seen. We have Joan, the lead character, being led through a dense forest-like walkway by her husband, who never turns back, even to look at her. Along the way, her husband causes sharp thorn branches to whip back and hit her in the face.
The movie incorporates these nightmare dream sequences, which work as an allegory for her marital frustrations.
The most frightening of which is a reoccurring nightmare involving a masked intruder breaking into the house while she's all alone. Bored and now home alone for the next week, Joan and her friend meet this woman who claims to be the leader of a secret witch coven. The woman explains that witchcraft can open up new doors and broaden a person's horizons.
Everyone who's ever had a clairvoyant experience or seen a poltergeist at work or had a prophetic dream.
My favorite scene in this movie is actually where Joan and her friend are driving back to Joan's house after meeting the witch for the first time. There they meet Greg. You see, Greg is Joan's daughter's fuck buddy, I guess.
Greg is played by Ray Lane from Romero's earlier film, There's Always Vanilla.
What way? Come on, say it.
I don't think that's very normal.
What? Normal.
What kind of a person do you think I am?
Look, lady, I told you the other night I wasn't trying to put the make on you, and I meant it.
He's this very hip, carefree guy who hatches this brilliant idea to trick Joan's friend into thinking that she's smoking pot.
The bird of paradise crap on your head.
This is actually a really telling scene that, in a very raw way, explores the fears and anxieties of these middle-aged, oppressed women.
Now,
I'm worried about my heart, damn it.
I'm telling you, there's nothing to worry about.
I'm no young chicken. I mean, well, Joni's a young chicken, but I'm no young...
Did you worry about your age?
I actually find this scene genuinely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because I'm not finished yet.
What do you mean?
Well, I'm not finished with...
With what,
with
Shirley? Come on, with
things.
what? What
I
kind
want
of
to
thing?
do things, and I'm not...
What
Greg,
is it?
you've got to
What thing?
stop it. I want to do something besides...
Besides what?
Greg, you've got
Come
to
on,
stop
besides
it
what?
now.
Besides what?
Shirley, are you okay? Damn you!
Later that night, Joan hears the sounds of Greg and her daughter making love. She quietly returns to her room and begins to masturbate as she fantasizes about a life that she never had the opportunity to have.
Where's my button? Please.
Listen, if that goddamn kid gets home when I'm gone, you tell her I'm going to kick some ass.
As the witchcraft increases, so do the terrifying dreams of the masked intruder. The ending of this film is really quite brilliant. Joan is awoken in the middle of the night to the sounds of someone trying to come in through the front door. Not knowing if she's awake or still having a nightmare, Joan grabs the good old American family shotgun, takes aim at the door, and blasts the figure from her nightmare. Which, as it turns out, in reality was her husband.
You are sick, woman. What the hell is it? You know how to handle it? I'll tell you how to handle it. You kick some ass, damn it! You kick some ass!
I've always liked the title Season of the Witch. I used to think that it was a lucky break for George that someone retitled it. But as I've gotten older, and my perception of the movie has changed, I realized that the original title, Jack's Wife, really is the most suitable for this movie. Because that's who Joan is in the beginning of this film. She's Jack's wife. She has no identity, no interests, and essentially no future. This movie was made at a time when women were treated as second-class citizens. This movie is about Joan. It's her fucking movie, yet her husband gets his name in the title.
Damn it, Joan. Will you please keep the garage door shut? Still winter.
And that's what the movie is all about. Joan crawling out from the shadow of her abusive, neglectful husband.
We'll be late, Nick. See you in the morning. Try to stay virgin.
This movie is very hard to categorize. This movie is really hard to define. Much like feminism itself, this movie means many different things to different people at different times.
It's so easy to start relying on it, forgetting what it's really meant to be. It won't work more often than not if you use it foolishly.
When you approach this movie with an open mind and take in all the social satire and early 70s anger, you really can't help but ask, why doesn't anyone reference this film?
Well guys, like I said, it's a super busy time for 7th Street Productions. We've got a brand new feature film currently in pre-production. We have a anthology feature film that should be coming out very soon. It's called Spunk's Not Dead. Definitely keep an eye out for it. We also have a short film that will be playing at Oregon Scream Week here in mid-February. We also have a brand new website, 7thstreetfilms.com, and we will be having more videos dropping each week here on this YouTube channel. So make sure you go and you check out some of our old films, check out some of our short films that we have on this page. Keep the likes and subscribes coming. Visit our brand new website, shoot us an email, we'll shout you out on the show. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Until next time.
I'm a witch.